why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them about your role or roles in the cannabis world?
Well, let's see. I started in the cannabis industry when I was 11. I'm 51, so do the math. I started as an activist in 1976. Started organizing smoke-ins on the mall in Washington, D.C., on the Washington Monument grounds, smoking marijuana and holding rallies. And then 1984, we marched from the Lincoln Memorial to the White House and smoked marijuana the whole way. So even then, we were thinking, any time now, it's going to be legal. And
Hmm.
so that's the first thing I usually say to people who are entrepreneurs is don't wait for the law to catch up with your mindset. Just use what you can and what you can use now and run with it. So then about 87, I moved to Los Angeles, started a delivery service called Green Dot. It was the first delivery service, branded delivery service in America. And 88, joined the American Hemp Council with Jack Herrera and Chris Conrad. And for those of you out there who want to be in the industry, I'd suggest reading The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herrera, and that'll give you the history of hemp and why I was changing the word marijuana and all that stuff. So um, then about 19, well, I had a delivery service. I still have a delivery service uh, for about 25 years. Around 2006, started realizing I wasn't the only game in town anymore. Uh, I used to be the only delivery service in Los Angeles, so you can imagine how busy I was. Uh, but I I started looking around and realizing that there were other dispensaries and delivery services opening. So I decided to do a lot of research, try to figure out how to start a legal marijuana delivery service. I realized there wasn't any information about it at all, so I went to I went out and I wrote a book called How to Start Your Own Medical Marijuana Delivery Service. It became the curriculum at Oaksterdam, where I still teach. I'm the professor of delivery at Oaksterdam University, and so that that has helped thousands of people to create their own delivery service. And I have a consulting firm, and I've helped hundreds of people to start their own marijuana businesses, in addition to starting the Cannabis Career Institute, which has classes every weekend in a different city teaching people how to start their own marijuana business, delivery, dispensary, grow op, or edibles operation. So that's pretty much what I do every day is help create jobs, and I have a company called Canna Jobs that helps people find work or employees in the industry. So between Cannabis Career Institute and Canna Jobs, pretty much have the whole spectrum covered. We're about to come out with a new project called Cannabis State University, where we'll have accredited classes that people can take at actual colleges. But that's going to take a little bit of time. We're still trying to get that all worked out right now.
Wow, that's amazing. So thank you, first of all, for sharing all that, and more importantly, for all the work and time and effort and energy you've put into, developing this space and doing it the right way. So thank you for that. I'm wondering, in the spirit of educating entrepreneurs, what are some things or mistakes or missteps that you've made in your career as a cannabis entrepreneur that you've learned from?
Well, it's all about relationships in the cannabis industry, and you have to make sure that you don't burn any bridges and you're always reliable. In my book, I talk about the three C's, and consistency is the first one, and that's the reason why I've been successful with my delivery services. I've had one of my suppliers I've had for over 20 years, and that's only because I've been reliable and haven't made the mistake of not following through on what I say I'm going to do, and not cultivating the relationships I have instead of just using people and moving on from one to the next. So those are the kind of people that I see coming into the industry that don't last very long.
Hmm.
And I'd say that would be my first advice would be you better uh, be reliable and consistent, because when people find out that you're not, then they just don't want to do business with you. And it's a small industry, and everybody knows who's uh, going to follow through and who's not, and that's what we're looking for. This whole business was based on trust and relationships in the beginning when it was underground. We built a strong network of people that were doing that, and that's kind of where this industry stands, is on those relationships. So if you come in and you want to get into this circle, that's why it's difficult, is because you have to build up that rapport.
Excellent. So, you talked a lot about consistency, trust, relationships, and, I'm curious, what are some of the key values of the cannabis industry that, you look for in new entrepreneurs?
Well, I give I and that could also be a mistake too, and that sometimes is to give some extend the trust that you have to extend in the beginning of the relationship in order to see if the person's going to follow through or not. And then if they burn you, then it's hard to say whether it's your fault or it's their fault that first time. Um, so really, that's where you have to make your mark if you're trying to get in the industry. Is take that first opportunity and do more than you said you were going to do.
Right. So over deliver and ultimately follow through and act with integrity.
Right.
Awesome. What are some things that you're excited about for the cannabis industry in 2015?
Well, there's so many different outside investors that are coming into the industry right now that want to try to see if this is going to work for them, and they feel more confident now. And that's the other thing about the industry that's been hard for people to swallow and get involved in, is because it's been so up and down for the past 5 or 6 years, that if you're not already in the industry, then sometimes you get scared away by that, and a lot of people just go back into their holes, and they don't come out until things are looking good. And right now things are looking good, so all the people that weren't there last year and the year before are now here, and they're trying to get in. They anticipate 2016 all these people are going to legalize, so they're thinking now's the time to get in. So I'd say that's one of the more exciting things about 2015.
And what are some concerns you have for the industry in 2015?
Well, there's a lot of people that are coming into the industry from the outside, and a lot of them are big money or people that don't necessarily understand the industry very well. So that's one of the things that's good about the industry. It's very resilient, and people try to come in and they apply the rules of, say, corporations or other drug industries, say cocaine or pharmaceuticals, and they try to put that on the marijuana industry. But we're definitely, since we're already insular and we already have an underground network developed, we don't have to be so dependent on them, and so they need our information more than we need their information. However, we need their money in order for this to break huge. So developing all of our brands and being able to sell out to the corporate interests, if that's what your goal is on a lot of people's minds. But the concern is the little guy going to get disenfranchised by the corporations and all these big money guys that are just going to shut everybody out, and then you can't grow if there's a dispensary within 25 miles of you, kind of like the way that is in Arizona and a lot of places. That's not really the American way. If yes, you might be able to get your joints at 7-Eleven, but you still, if you want to be able to grow your own stuff, and or buy it from the boutique grower that's inevitably going to be growing it better than Marlboro, right? So
Right.
That's the concern. Is the whole field going to be able to be open so that everybody can participate, or are we just once again going to get to be the delivery guy at Domino's, or
Right.
the burger guy at McDonald's.
Right.
We want to have our own businesses.
Sure. The people who love cannabis and who have been a part of the culture should be the ones, participating in the economic opportunity. So, it sounds like your concern is the big money and new money and really corporate and venture capitalists, et cetera, coming in. I'm wondering what you can recommend for, the average cannabis user or enthusiast. What's something that they can do to at least represent the industry or help the industry?
I guess it could just be all the people who already have the experience getting as involved as they possibly can right now before somebody comes in that doesn't know anything about it and creates the policy. It's better that we be proactive and get involved, and try to create the policy either with them or for them, because otherwise it's just going to be all jacked up.
Right. So really, it sounds like getting involved on the political side of things and making sure the policy is friendly to the real cannabis community.
Right. And just a lot of places don't define their laws enough, and they don't define the opportunities enough, so therefore it just becomes totally limited, and nobody knows what hit them because it all happens before they even got a chance to get involved. So hopefully the
Right.
states that come online later will continue to evolve and learn from the other states' mistakes. It seems like that's what's going on so far. For instance, in Florida, all the legislation had all the definitions of all the different forms of marijuana and all the different jobs that you could have. So there wasn't anything left out that could be misconstrued, kind of the way it was in Arizona, where they didn't have a definition of what a concentrate was, so
Right.
it was still considered a narcotic if it was any other form than dried marijuana. So all these things are good.
Right. It's part of
It
the
seems like
answer is,
the
I'm
market's
sorry.
maturing. They're kind of understanding there's different products and different ways to make marijuana, so they're not as naive as they were before.
That's interesting. So it sounds like self-regulation and over-regulation might be, at least in the short term, pretty important for getting things set up the right way.
That's pretty much what we've been doing, is over regulating ourselves up until this point, because
Mhm.
we don't have an FDA, we don't have uh, anybody telling us what to do, which is good. But on the other hand, people that are on the outside looking in say it's unregulated and it's not legitimate and all this other stuff. So we're
Right.
probably policing ourselves better than or as well as it would be if there was a government oversight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Along those lines, what's something that you wish people outside of cannabis culture who aren't really experienced or educated, what's something you wish they would know about cannabis and the cannabis industry?
Well, most of them are painfully naive about uh, the need for most cannabis medicine to be a whole plant extract, right? They want to focus on CBD or THC or whatever, and I wish they would just understand that there's a lot more to know about the plant that we haven't found out. So don't try to you know limit it to just one aspect of the plant. Just try to create as many different cannabinoid specific things as we can, but understand that they all work together to create the effects that they create, as opposed to separating them all out.
It's interesting. That's very interesting. So do you think the answer is really in a lot more research or in more scientific investigation?
Well, that's what we've been unable to do here in America. I'm sure in Israel and in China they're blowing us out of the water. They probably know 10 million times more than we do. So they're going to come out with all these patents and all these treatments and all these different ways of doing things. We're going to be totally left in the dust.
Hmm. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Any closing remarks or last points that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I always talk about how, if you're not ready for the cannabis industry, you could always get into the hemp industry. And I always talk about how people that are in the cannabis industry, 90% of the jobs don't have anything to do with growing or selling marijuana, right?
Yep.
So you can still be a straight person and be in the cannabis industry because you don't have to be directly involved with the marijuana. You can still be supportive of the industry and not use marijuana. You don't have to be involved in the recreational aspect of it or even believe necessarily in it to understand that there are other people that do, right? So the whole point is just like any other lifestyle tolerance issue, civil rights or gay rights or any kind of rights. This is a lifestyle issue, and people can choose to do that if they want to, and you can't ostracize them or marginalize them or disenfranchise them just because they choose a certain way of life. So that's the whole point.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining today and for chatting with me. I have to thank you for all the tremendous work you do and have done for many years for the industry. And, I'm hopeful that, you know, as the industry grows, you have continued success and we can hopefully educate people together and get policy set up the right way so, when Marlboro comes in, the small guy isn't squeezed out.
Yeah, that's right. We got to create jobs, and the little guy's got to make money. And this is what I've been doing since I was young. And I would like to be able to say to my son, you can have a lifelong career in cannabis.